I climbed Mount Jefferson on August 21st of 2021. This has been a really hot and dry year, so I was expecting conditions to be pretty melted out. Um, they were actually even more melted out than I expected. The only snow on the whole route was on the front southwest flank of the traverse. There was quite a bit of rime ice from actually a storm that kind of hit us that morning while we were going up to the Red Saddle. Um, but we didn't end up using the snow gear very much. I would say, though, it's hard to say if that is normal. This has been a really hot year, but I was surprised that since there was some snow on the south side, there was none on the north side. But I don't know if that's normal or not. Those were the conditions we found. So it was almost all just a rock scramble. And we roped everything from the Red Saddle to the summit and back to the Red Saddle, which was quite time consuming. It took about 5 hours from the Red Saddle to the summit back to the Red Saddle. We had plenty of time though, because I did this as a camp to camp climb on my summit day. We were already camped at Goat Peak and just had to go to the summit and back to camp, and that took all day the way that we did it. So definitely going to want to budget a lot of time if you're planning to, try to build a large safety margin in, which is what I was hoping to do. Video is pretty chopped up, just little bits, but I'll probably make some commentary here to try to explain what's going on. Here you can see I'm starting out from the Red Saddle, and you can kind of see that first patch of snow that'll come around the corner. That's really the steepest part of the traverse. I think that's probably where the most people fall. It's definitely pretty steep right there, but the whole thing is fairly steep and loose.
This shit is really easy and low consequence so far. When you get to the end of the rope, you can start signaling and just following me. Because there's plenty of boulders, you don't need to put in it. Don't message us for the next little while, because it's me and Arbor communicating while we're roping. How much rope do you have left? Switch this time, we'll find me when you run out.
So this next little part, my brother led this part, and he put some pickets into this snow because we had them and we thought we were going to need them on the backside. And then he belayed me across from the west ridge. And this part's pretty steep, and the part that comes right after it is also pretty steep when you have to climb up the little dirt wall, which normally would be snow. Either way, I don't think I'd want to do this part off belay. This probably would be the part that I would be the least okay with doing solo.
Hang on. Arbor, yeah, I need to flip it over a blue spot. Got it, cool. buckets on your pack.
So this is the second section of the traverse, going from the west ridge around the north side to where you actually go up the summit block, and there's no definite end to it. You just kind of traverse around and then you start to go up while traversing, and by the time you really start to go straight up and then back to the right, you're actually a ways up the summit block. If you've ever seen a picture of the summit block from the north, from one of the north routes, where the bottom of that is not where you come in. You come up a ways up it, over from the side, and then you'll start to hook to the right, and you'll see up here, after I get up properly on the summit block, which is still quite a ways, I kind of made a mistake and went straight and got into some more hairy stuff, but I'll explain that when we get to it.
Okay, I'm gonna bring you over here 1 sec.
This part of the traverse is not that bad, actually. You can pretty easily walk. There's not a lot of good protection, but there's some boulders and stuff, and this was probably the most tolerable part of the climb. Getting up to about this part is where it starts to get a little steeper and more nasty, loose rocks.
Starting to level out a little bit. I still can't necessarily tell if I'm getting to the summit block.
Okay, I've only got about 4 feet of rope left.
You could just simul this. Almost every boulder I pulled on is a little loose. That's really the main thing.
Okay, I'm gonna start coming up after you now.
So starting here is where you're starting to actually climb onto the summit block, but you're still traversing at this point. So you'll continue to go up and continue to go around. And if you turn right too soon, it's harder. It's supposed to be harder, and it definitely looks like it would be harder. So I think if you just continue to follow the ramp for this part, that will generally lead you in the right direction. And you don't want to really start going up until you're kind of close to the north ridge, and then once you get close to it, you'll start to go up. But shortly after that point is where I kind of made a wrong turn, because once you get up and you can see a ramp that leads off to the right, that's where you want to go to the right. And above that ramp, you can see, kind of looking off that way and then looking left. So when I'm looking right, that's the way you want to go, over there, and you'll see there's this ramp, and then above that is some slick rock. But I tried to keep my rope line kind of straight, and I thought that it would work better to go straight. And so that's what I did, and in a second you'll see what happens when I got into some really loose and unstable rocks and one of them started sliding on me.
Well, I thought that might be it there for a second.
So at this point, I decided to bail on this route. That scared me pretty bad when that rock slid on me, and I think that I wasn't actually as close to the top as it looks in this video, because it looked like I could just push on and it would get a little steeper and I could get to the top, but you'll see it's actually quite a ways to the top from here, and I think that if you go that way it would be harder. So off the way I'm looking now, that's where I went down. That would have been a pretty crappy fall because my last piece was like 30 feet down there. It was like a hex and some boulders. That would have sucked. So super glad I didn't do that. And I decided to just bail on this way. I decided I was going the wrong way and went down and over to the right, and that seems to be correct.
I'm not 100% sure that we're on the right track. I haven't seen any cat or anything. But
This looks kind of shitty though.
So when you get to those slick rocks there, it looks pretty steep. It doesn't really look fourth class up those slick rocks, but what you need to do is keep going to the right along kind of the base of them, and there's a way.
yeah, I guess that's it maybe. I mean, everybody said it was going to be hard, and it looks like it will. Yeah, but not crazy hard. And I can get protection in. We're just going to have to, work with the amount of protection that we have.
So this way, when I was looking straight up, is the way that I ended up going, and my 60-meter rope was just barely long enough to get me to the summit from that spot at the base of the slick rock where he belayed me. There was a bit of rope drag, and it was kind of tricky to get protection in because most of what I had was passive and it just wasn't really working, getting pulled out and stuff. But the climbing was fairly secure, I guess I would say, but there's a lot of rime ice and stuff on everything, and definitely still some loose boulders up here. Lots of loose boulders, but not quite as many maybe as down low. So this is the final bit to the summit. My GoPro actually died when I was a few minutes from topping out, unfortunately. I was probably 40 feet maybe from the summit when it died. But the last bit's pretty steep, and I think maybe if you went around to the right, around here somewhere, there's kind of a choss ramp that goes around sort of on the backside, but that really wouldn't have worked for my rope line, and I wasn't interested in deviating from the route at all. I didn't even see that there was possibly another way until I was at the top, but it really wouldn't have worked anyway on lead, and this way was fine. It's steep, and the part after my GoPro died was actually the steepest. As far as rock climbing, yeah, it's not like a hard grade or anything, but you certainly wouldn't want to fall, and with being icy and stuff and heavy pack and whatnot, I thought it was probably pushing it a bit for being what I would consider to be fourth class. But thankfully, none of the really big boulders were that mobile, though there were some small ones that I was a little bit suspicious about for sure.
How much rope is left? How much rope is left?
We probably got about 2/3 laid out.
So this is about the point where my GoPro died, but you can see pretty close to the top. Once we got up there, we just did one wrap off the summit, and then from there we just backtracked the entire route simul-climbing. There's other ways you might be able to rappel from there with 2 ropes or a different method, but that's not what we did, and that worked fine. We had a lot of extra time, built into our summit because we were camped so close to the mountain, and that was really helpful, for being able to do it safely and just take our time with it. I think, if you do want to do it in the late season like this, which I'm not necessarily recommending, then I definitely would encourage you to build in a lot of extra time and make sure that you're well prepared so that you can do it safely.